This podcast is sponsored by BB Mates, a personalised gift company. Are you looking for the secret Santa gifts with a difference? Trying to buy for that one friend who has it all? Or maybe just the grumpy family member who doesn't want anything? Well, look no further than BB Mates, the family-run personalised gift company who can create the perfect gift just for you. With the ability to create custom orders on a wide variety of products, Christmas shopping has just become as easy as scoring at the Etihad. Contact them at info@bbmakes.com to talk to them about designing something just for you, or you can visit www.bbmakes.com to shop their pre-designed items. Don't forget to use the code COYS to let them know where you came from.
Welcome to the Spurs News Podcast, your home for all things Tottenham Hotspur. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of the Spurs News Podcast. A day earlier this week on Thursday. This is episode 254. We're a day earlier because Stefan, who's now regular Stefan, cannot make the show this week. Work is keeping him busy, so I have a special treat for everybody who's listening. The OG is returning and I made him this specially for it.
Matt.
Oh yeah, there's no beating my skills. It's the return of the Matt. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, mate, that was awesome. Thanks for that introduction.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure that's going to trigger some copyright hell, but who cares? It's the return of the Matt.
Oh, wicked. Do you know what? When you called me to say, can you come on and do it?
Yeah.
When I talk to people at the ground, I always say, oh, I used to do a podcast. But now I can say I still do a podcast.
Yes,
there you go.
Yes, you are still very much one of the hosts of the Spurs News Podcast. Currently on hiatus due to severe work commitments.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, what crazy idea was it to start a business, especially at my age?
Yeah, mate. It's just, I remember us chatting about it because you were like, you're self-employed. What can you tell me? I was like, it's hard work. it's
hard
hours.
work. I've had 1 week off this year.
Yeah.
And like, I missed my 6 weeks annual leave I used to get when I was on the railway.
When you are self-employed, it's the worst boss you'll ever have. You'll hate that guy.
Oh, I don't, yeah.
But yeah, this is the Spurs News Podcast, episode 254, the return of the Mats, and that's what I'm going to call the show, so anyone who's a new listener is going to be very confused.
Yeah, who's this dude coming?
Yeah, but any of the existing listeners will be very happy. Mate, we've got all sorts to talk about, but because you've not been on the show this season, I think we're going to have a general chat, rather than diving into the Chelsea game in depth, which is just going to hurt us both.
Yeah,
I think having a general chat, because last week I was in this weird sort of place of like, I'm going to say it now, just for the record, I'm not Ange out, but with the amount of stuff being said, I felt we needed to have the debate. So we did the podcast, which is like, is it time for Ange to go? And I put my feelings quite clearly no. But I just felt, okay, we're at this point where people are talking about it so much, it'd actually be kind of negligent to ignore that. But yeah, so people were kind of irate about it, like, oh, you're just making it worse by discussing it. It's kind of like, well, I don't mean to make it worse by discussing it. It was kind of, I thought it was, okay, everyone's talking about it. Let's talk about it, get out of the way. Now, you have not been on the show for quite some time, definitely not this season. How are you feeling, mate? How's it being a game-going fan? How is it that the football's very hit and miss? How are you finding things?
I think it goes hand in hand, doesn't it? When you're struggling, you straight away look at the manager, don't you?
Yeah.
Right, he's to blame, and it's really difficult. I mean, you look at the end of last season, our form was dire then, wasn't it? I think we lost 9 of our last 11 games or something. It was just terrible, and I think obviously with Seb, my son, growing up. He's becoming more insightful, and he's also becoming a lot more practical when it comes to being a Spurs fan, which I love. He's like,
Good.
He's only 12, and he's already kind of accepted this is what Spurs are like, Good. But he made a point which I think was repeated by somebody on one of those calling shows, a Spurs fan, and I think the problem that people are finding with Ange is that he doesn't change, does he? Right, so
no.
it is fantastic. For honestly, we are up and down, like you say, Ben, being a supporter that goes, you're up and down off your seat all the time. You don't sit down for more than a couple of minutes. Now, I say to Seb, do you remember the days of Conte when we went 3 games without a single shot on target?
Oh, yes.
You know, do you remember? 3 games.
Yes.
If we go more than 10 minutes without a shot, it's a bit weird, you know? So we play this really exciting attacking football, but it kind of feels a bit Ozzy Ardiles, doesn't it? You know, and I think probably Ozzy Ardiles might have done quite well managing Celtic and managing some of those teams in Australia and Japan.
Yeah.
But it's a different beast, isn't it, Premier League? And you just get found out a lot more.
It's an interesting one because we've had this debate on the show a little bit. Me and Stefan, he's kind of put a very similar point to me, and I've used the example a little bit, and I'd love to get your take on it, of Manchester City. Now, we don't play identical systems to Man City. I know there was the whole joke about I'm just copying Pep, mate, but they are different. Like, with the inverted fullback system, it is different, but it also has a very similar philosophy of control the ball, going to attack, going to play a high line, press you high. Yeah, it's high risk, but it's high reward. And the thing that I find kind of interesting is like Man City doing that absolutely dominate teams and win games. Typically, they don't just win, do they? Man City, if they score 1, they score 2, they score 3, they score 4. So typically they win well. Now, in November, the wheels fell off Man City in a way none of us could have predicted. Like, for them to go winless for an entire month, I mean, if you put money on that, you'd have won big time.
Oh, it's bizarre.
Yeah, just bizarre. But what was interesting was just how ordinary they looked during that time. Like, 3-0 up in Europe against, with respect to them, not one of the top European sides. And then to end up drawing 3-3. Very Spurs.
It was funny. It was funny. But my point I want to put to you, and I'd love to get your opinion, is Man City have got this squad of players to die for. Like, you know, they bring options off the bench that starts in practically every other team in the league. But whilst they've had injuries and whilst they've had this kind of real lack of belief, I guess, where they've all kind of, the wheels came off, like I said, in November, and so many of the players just fell through the floor. You could see them looking at each other in this kind of lost, terrified way of like, what the hell is happening to us? What the hell's going on? Like this, we normally always do this and it works, and today it's not. And what I find interesting is no one's screaming that, you know, Pep's an idiot because Pep never changes, because he's been so successful, winning so many trophies over the years, and he's done that in the top European leagues, or 3 of. But it's also worth mentioning he's done that at Barcelona, Bayern Munich and Man City with the resources to dominate those leagues. Now, Ange plays this style of football, and yes, he's come through leagues which aren't the top European leagues, but he's always been successful. He has won and beaten what's in front of him, doing it his way. Now, when he's in the Premier League, you talk about sort of getting found out. Well, it's difficult because I think if we had our first 11, our strongest 11, with the new rotation options that we brought in the summer, and we were able to field that consistently, I think we would be doing a hell of a lot better than we are. But when we have run into injuries, which we inevitably will, all the sides are, we look very ordinary. It's like we either look very, very good or very, very average. It's like no. Yeah, it's one extreme or the other, isn't it? At the moment.
Is.
I mean, like we destroyed Aston Villa, West Ham. Like we just destroyed teams, and yet we get destroyed as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
And what's interesting again about being destroyed, if you think about it, who has actually destroyed us, scoreline wise? Like the Chelsea game is probably the most. I think it's the most we've conceded in a single game this season. And 2 of those were penalties. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were penalties.
Yeah.
But, it was... When we win, we seem to win big. And when we lose, we seem to lose like 1-0, 2-0. I mean, even the final score in that game was 4-3. So we only lost by 1 goal. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not defending the performance. I'm just kind of... We had Romero and Van der Ven on the pitch for 15 minutes, roughly, and we were 2-0 up when Romero had to go off. Van der Ven re-injured his hamstring in the next 10 minutes, and we suddenly, everything went wrong. So it's like a cascade failure. When we are good, and we look great. Those opening 10 to 15 minutes, I mean, you were there in the stadium. That must have felt electric, being in the way we started the game, the press and everything.
Oh, the press was awesome. And that Cucurella, he just couldn't cope with it, could he? I mean, obviously it's a slippery pitch. It's been pouring with rain all day. But it's funny, when we was on the drive going to the ground, we wasn't aware that Romero and Van der Ven were back. So in our mind, we're thinking Dragic, and Seb said to me, Davis is injured. So we're like, right, it's going to be Archie Gray and Dragic centre back. And then when the team, like, when the lineups come up, obviously amazing, but the game finished with exactly the same centre back pairing that we predicted at the start of the game, you know.
Mad.
And that's the thing. You've hit the nail on the head, I think, when it comes to how Man City are different to us. Played similar styles, but whereas they can bring on like Grealish or I'm trying to think some of the players they've got, like Doku, he plays substitutes. Whereas we're bringing on Timo Werner, and I like Timo Werner. He seems a nice enough guy, but his pace to burn. But his supply is just awful. And in the you're at the stadium and you're trying to be positive, but honestly, it's so difficult not to groan sometimes when you think you've got yourself in a great position, mate, and you just like, what was that? So we're bringing on players like that, whereas, like say, Man City can bring on absolute quality, and unfortunately, you're right. Like when it is our first 11, we're a match for anybody. We're absolutely a match, but we never seem to have our first 11, do we? That's the problem. Like most teams, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that. I know you alluded to it. Spurs aren't the only team that have suffered with injuries, but it's just frustrating because our first fit 11 is one of the best teams in the Premier League, but unfortunately, we never get to be able to play them, do we?
No, it is bizarre, and it's kind of it's frustrating because at what point do you start to wonder? Because this is where I think a lot of people are, which is I touched on this last week. There's loads of like rumors fly around and like conspiracy theories and stuff. Like, have you heard the Jed Spence one? So the Jed Spence one is he did brilliantly in pre-season, really impressed the manager. He talked to the player and said, like, yeah, you're part of my plans if you want to stay. He committed, he got stuck in, was doing really well, playing minutes off the bench, signed a new contract. He's played something like a total of 6 minutes on the pitch since signing that deal. And that's like 10 games ago. And the rumour flew around. And this flew around. And I want to point this out. And I want to say this. Sometimes I get told stuff and I'm like, oh, yeah, I know that's true. Other times I just read it on Twitter, okay? This is just read on Twitter. And I just laughed. And what it was is like, oh, Jed Spence went out celebrating his new contract, showed up the next day still drunk, disciplined by the club. Now, what was funny, or what is, of course, curious, is then it comes a couple of days later, he's not in the squad. So, of course, I'm like eyebrow raised, like, oh, I wonder if that was true. There's a little thing, oh no, he's got a little muscle injury. I'm like, oh, that's funny, right? Yeah, he's not played. Like, he's not been involved at all. And he even took to Instagram the other day to basically vent his frustration at, I'm ready, I'm fit, I'm ready to play. Waiting for your chance is frustrating.
Well, it's annoying as well. He can't play in Europe, can he? Because he's not even in the European squad, is he? So.
No, but of course the reason why he's not is because we picked Fraser Forster in the squad. And that's proven to be a good call because we lost Vicario.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Some good news on the injury front is apparently Vicario's doing really well already. They actually now estimate he could be back in February, whereas early estimates we might have lost him for the season.
Wow.
So yeah,
for a broken bone, that's really good.
Yeah, so being February, I guess with a goalkeeper he could play with a cast on. I don't know, like one of those moon boots. He just can't jump very high. Yeah, just painkillers. You'll be fine. I say painkillers. You'll be fine. He broke that in a game and played the whole rest of the game. That was mental. Wasn't it? Fair play.
60 minutes with broken bone.
Yeah. I went to school with a kid. Right. He broke his foot. I can't remember what he did. He was like a proper farm boy. Not like you'll never see one of those guys in the gym with like the gym muscles. But he was just built like a brick shithouse, like a barn.
Yeah. Don't arm wrestle him, basically.
No, yeah. He looked like one of those wrestlers. Like, he's not rippled with muscles, but just like he was a mountain. And he broke his foot one day, and like it was broken. He went off to the hospital and everything, X-ray and everything like that. And then he kept getting a bollocking because basically he tried to play football on it whilst he was like, he's like, it's fine, it'll be all right. The kid was a nightmare. But yeah, it just made me think of that. Like, you know, like I'd just be like, yeah, okay, I'll put my foot up, I'm done. Broken bone, everybody, I'm going off injured.
I'm out.
And yeah, and he's just like, yeah, I'll be all right. I'll take a goal kick and kick it 60 friggin' yards. Bang! Yeah. It's funny in his mind, he's like, well...
Yeah, I was gonna say someone's just made differently, Sam, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm an office worker.
yeah.
Oh, that seems
I've got
like,
soft hands.
Yeah, I got a guy I ring. Like, oh, that needs picking up and lifting and moving over there. Thank you. Yeah, I'll do my gym weights in the corner. You lift the big thing.
Yeah, you do that. You crack on. Yeah.
So I guess where my head is at the moment is I do. You'll know this from we did the show together for so long. I do try and err towards the positive side of things, same as you do, because otherwise you're just going to be miserable all your life being a Tottenham fan. So you need to try you need to try and find the positives. And one of the main things I guess I'm kind of clinging to is I look around and I look at the managers in recent years, ignoring Pep in Man City as the kind of outlier. But I look at the managers in recent years who were given the opportunity and given the time to build, and then they went on to do very, very well. And the two examples of that, I think, are Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, who had two fairly average seasons by Liverpool standards and his standards, compared to what he then went on to achieve with them. And of course, as much as we all hate to say it, Arteta at Arsenal. Whose first two seasons at that club, they were 8th in the league. I mean, I know they picked up an FA Cup in that time, which is fantastic. And just so everyone's aware, we are still in the FA Cup. We're still in the League Cup at the time of saying this. Although I will point out we got Man United in the quarter-final and we have no central defenders. We have Dragusin.
Jackie's chair.
Right.
Do you know, it's funny. I would love to have known how many times Arteta out trended on Twitter before.
Oh, massively,
Yeah.
Massively. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. Someone smarter than me showed me a while back, and I wish I could find it now, is where you can go back to tweets and you can like find an archive, like, okay, hashtag Arteta out during these dates, you know, how many of those were tweeted and stuff like that. And also you can look up certain accounts during that time. And he showed me Arsenal Fan TV during that time. It is video after video after video. He's a waste of time. He's a fraud. Yep. He's this, he's that. All from the same people who now sing his name like he's the Messiah. Yep. Football's very fickle. We all know that.
Yeah, it is.
You got fans singing Ange Postecoglou's name at the top of their voices as we destroy Man City. And then you got those same away fans calling him an effing this and effing that to his face practically after we lost to Bournemouth. It's painful, stuff like that, but unfortunately the nature of people is a bit fickle, and football fans I think are some of the worst examples of that.
Yeah. Well, do you think, Sam, do you think it is literally just the fact that we just struggle with injuries that's making us so inconsistent? Like, what would you put your finger on why we're so inconsistent?
For me, I think it's two things. I think the injuries are unlucky, but like we've just said, all teams are going to run into injuries. I think the difference is when you play this type of system, there's no hiding. And what I mean by that is that if you bring a guy on who doesn't do well in this kind of system, or it's brand new to them, for example, like I'm an 18-year-old, I've come through the academy, I've played 4-4-2 my whole life, and now I'm playing an inverted what? If you chuck that kid in, he's going to look a little bit lost. And when we look at our summer transfer business, I think we did some excellent business for the club in terms of there's some players there where their ceiling is through the roof, like is insane. Archie Gray, his ceiling as a player is insane, and he's showing touches of that all the time. I think we all can see that with Bergvall as well.
I love Bergvall. I love that player.
We can really see it, but they're both 18.
Yeah.
And when you sign players like that, you are going to have to go with the fact they're going to get murdered at times. Now, Gray has been playing left back, right back, central defence, central midfield. He's been getting given minutes this season all over the shot, especially in Europe. And when he's been doing that, the experience he's gaining is invaluable. It's insane. But the problem I've got at the moment with where the club is, and the problem I've got with this model, etc., and what we've done, is it means right now, this season, Ange Postecoglou is turning to his bench, and like you said, he's either got seasoned professionals who are so out of form with no confidence, no one else would pick them up in Timo Werner. And please, I know people want to berate him and slag him off and stuff. I'm not into that at all. He's a Tottenham player. When he leaves. But right now, he's putting on the shirt, and I got no doubt in my mind he's doing his best.
I guess his best, absolutely. But unfortunately...
Yeah, his best isn't great right now.
Yeah.
Like, every now and again, he'll hit a cross, or he'll do something, and you think, oh, there it is. There you are. Yeah. There you are. And then honestly, you go through again. You're like, oh shit.
Do you know what? If he was able to cross or shoot, he would be one of the best players in the Premier League because he has got pace to burn, hasn't he? He absolutely flies.
He just reminds me.
He gets to the spot.
Yeah, it just reminds me a little bit of when we all started singing Sissoko's name as a bit ironically of like who needs bail when you've got Sissoko. And he put a statement out about how much it meant to him, and all of a sudden he became a decent player for a while. So
yeah, that's right.
Maybe Werner on the dance floor needs to get sung a bit, and maybe he'll suddenly like hit form, like they love me. But my point is, you look at the signings. Odegaard looks a very, very good, tricky winger. He's 19, and of course he's been injured, so we signed him, and that option vanished. But my point is, like the signings are all good signings on the basis that they will at some point be developed good players, and the experience they're getting right now is invaluable. The thing that worries me, and I think the thing that a lot of fans are looking at and seeing, and it's making them angry, and I think Ange is the front line, so he's copping it, but really the anger is being misdirected because he can only use what's given to him. This is what the club has decided to give to him, these younger players and these players with the high ceiling. The thing that people are stressing and angry about, and the thing that I'm worried about, is all this experience we're giving these players doesn't benefit Tottenham. It benefits the club we then sell them to when they want to go and win trophies.
And you know what? I don't know if it was something you was going to bring up anyway, but I was going to ask you what you made of what Romero said, which kind of plays into what you just said.
Yeah, well, for anyone who doesn't know, Romero basically made this point. He publicly said via an Argentinian journalist, by the way, this is funny, right? You'll like this, because I don't know if you followed this. The BBC had that quote first, BBC Sport, but BBC Sport left the player's name off, basically saying a player who would prefer to remain anonymous said this.
Okay.
The Argentinian journalist he was talking to just slapped it all over the website on that night.
Yeah.
Romero says this.
Yeah.
So the BBC are there like, don't worry about it, Christian, we got you, man. Yeah, I think it's a point well made.
We're
not going to name you. Yeah, grassing people up like friggin' McDonald's workers over here. He slaps it all over. I probably shouldn't make that joke. He slaps it all over the internet, and of course then Cuties had to apologise as well, which I don't know if people have seen that today. Ange Postecoglou said, "Oh yeah, he shows how much he loves the club and how passionate he is. He accepts it's probably not the right way to air his points." I'm like,
but the thing is, he'll go to him, won't he? He'll just be like, "I've had enough of this." And Real Madrid would take him, wouldn't they? He can play one of the biggest. Yeah. And there you go. We've just lost someone. Like we lost one of the best centre backs we've had in the last sort of 20 years, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he is a World Cup winning, double Copa America winning, regarded in Argentina, South America, and around the world as one of the best central defenders on the planet. And yet Tottenham fans on a regular basis just moan about him. And you can see the difference. Like Dragusin, I like. I don't hate him. I think he is an improvement on the options we had before for playing Ange ball. But he isn't Romero, and that's not his fault. He's just not Romero. No. And the Chelsea game is a perfect example of the difference between the two. Romero is so good at sniffing out danger. You will see him close people down. And when he first joined us, he slammed into people all the time. Because in Italy, you can kind of do that. They like that. They like the defenders kicking the forwards in the air, you know. In this country, oh no, we want forwards scoring goals. You naughty defenders, you can't kick people. So he was getting booked and sent off left, right, and centre. He's adjusted it. His timing's improved. He now closes people down. There's no way on this earth, Romero's still on the pitch, fit, Sancho gets the space to shoot.
No,
because if you watch it, he was getting closed down to hell, and then Dragustin's come on. And in his defence, he's been on the pitch a minute. He's trying to get to the pace of the game.
Exactly.
And it just so happened that he managed to get, and you could see the confidence drop. Like, that's gone in, the whole team looking at each other like, oh, here we go again. And that's a problem. Like, that is a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, what Romero said was accurate. And I think he became a little bit of a cult hero to many for actually being a player in the side, coming out and saying it. But it does echo my fear, and it echoes what a lot of people fear, which is we're looking at the signings you've made, you're looking at the players you've given us, and then we remember the links. We remember the players we were linked to. You know, there was 2 central defenders who play regularly in the English Premier League that both went on free transfers in the summer last year. One to Newcastle, one to Chelsea. Neither of them are starting regularly, and you're telling me that Tottenham couldn't have made them an offer that equaled that or bettered it. When you look at the injuries we have as well, those guys, if they looked at us, would have been playing every week. And those are players that Ange liked and wanted. Left-footed central defenders, Premier League experienced, homegrown as well, for all the rules and problems we have with that. There's also Conor Gallagher. We were linked to him constantly, but refused to meet the asking price. And of course, then Atletico Madrid come in and sign him. Players quite happy, you know, what an opportunity for him. But again, that was an experienced player, Premier League, homegrown, all of the qualities that Ange was looking for. And we've given him an 18-year-old in Archie Gray. Archie Gray's ceiling, I think, is higher than Conor Gallagher's, without a doubt. But that's the next 4 years to get to the same level of maturity as Conor Gallagher has today. And that's where the problem is. We have a problem where we are signing young potential and asking the manager not only to develop them into players for the future, but also win now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'll tell you what, Sam, I've got one for you. I've got a poser for you. So this season, we're not going to get anywhere near the top 4, are we? I mean, that's dead and buried, I think, already. So would you take a bottom half league finish and us win one of the cups?
No, it's interesting. Which cup? Because that dictates my answer.
Right, okay. let's start at the bottom. Would you take the League Cup?
No, I'd be pretty unhappy with a bottom half finish in the League Cup. I'd obviously be pleased to see us lift the trophy, but I'd be very unhappy with that.
See, Seb was born 4 years before we won our last, or 4 years after our last trophy.
Yeah.
And you can see the pain in his eyes. He's desperate. He will take. And do you know, we went to last season. We went to the stadium to watch the under 23, isn't it?
Under 21s. Oh yeah, under 21s. Yeah, to win the Premier League.
Yeah, we went to see that. We beat Sunderland, didn't we? I think 3 or 4-1. Yeah. And we saw the Spurs team lift the trophy.
Yeah, there you go.
But it just didn't feel. It had a tinge of like, oh yeah. But so hopefully we could. I mean, me personally, I would take an 11th and any of those trophies. I would take any of them. I mean, obviously the one I'd love would be the European one. Yeah. And the reason why I'd love the European one is because in August I'm going on a holiday. So basically, my wife's got lots of friends from school, and their husbands and kids. And because we're originally from Essex, about 90% of them are West Ham fans.
Yeah, that's
now we went.
That's going to be.
Yeah, we went on a villa holiday last year. So the year they won the Euro, that year, and I had to. They even did a party, like basically where they were like, and there's me and one other of our friends who's Spurs fan. So I would love for us to win it. Yeah. And then I can just spend the whole of the summer saying, right, we're going to have a Spurs European party now, and it'll only be the Europa League, but I'll just be saying we're the champions of Europe, like they were saying. So honestly, I will take that and an 11th place finish. I will take it, 100%. I will take it.
My fear is we're not going to last long enough in Europe. We're playing Rangers, and it's a game we really need to win to make it to the kind of automatic next round anyway. And avoid having extra games, because let's face it, our fixture pile-up's already insane. And Rangers, to say they're motivated to beat Ange Postecoglou is an understatement, all right?
Yeah.
This is being built for their fans and them is like some sort of World Cup final. And I got a friend who's a Rangers fan, originally from Glasgow, now lives in Bristol. How the guy and we can understand each other, I'll never know, but proper Glaswegian. And he messaged me straight away when the draw was made and we were going to be playing Rangers. He said, "You lot are going to get fucked when you come to Ibrox." I was like, "What?" He went, "You don't know how much we hate that Aussie cunt." I was like, "Oh, really?" And he was like, "Oh, he friggin' turned it around. We just got a level peg in. Their team were in disarray, and then he comes in and turns them into world beaters again. We hate him." I was like, "Oh, right, okay."
God.
So he was a bit fired up. And we're going there with Dragusin and Gray probably starting as our central defenders, with poor Archie Gray, an 18-year-old who'd never played central defence in his career before this season, staring at an Ibrox crowd that, want to eat him. There's an Englishman!
You're not painting a good picture here of our hopes.
Oh, mate, I'm really convinced we're going to get a walloping. I'm really convinced. I'm worried because I think the fan reaction and I think the board have given Ange the dreaded vote of confidence this week, The Chelsea game happened and the next day everyone's kind of waiting, thinking, oh, what's Levy going to do? And every journalist had a quote from the club about how he's being backed, which is the dreaded vote of confidence, as we all know. So you can look at it the other way, Sam. You can switch it the other way, though. You can think that Ange Postecoglou has probably got a bit of a dislike to Rangers, so he's going to be quite up for it as well. I think he's always
I'm trying to grab whatever positive I can.
I have no doubt that Ange wants to win every game. It's the players. I mean, I watched his reactions to what was going on against Chelsea, and I'm looking on the face of a guy who has genuine disbelief on his face of like, how can we practice this every day? And then you go onto the pitch and you look like you've never met each other. Yeah, like, what? I mean, you'd almost want to get him in the dressing room and be like, Chunman, this over here is Fraser. Fraser, do you know everyone? I mean, I'm doing that jokingly. I remember I had a rugby coach once. We basically won a league. Like we were like kids, like 17, 18, and we won the league with 5 games to spare. And he wanted to finish the season perfect. We wanted to celebrate. and we basically didn't train, we were just haphazard. And we lost to this team we should have beaten. And we were awful. Like, the passes were like I'd throw a pass and there ain't no one there. Bloody hell! I could have swore someone was stood there. And he basically walked around the dressing room like, "No, Sam, do you know Tim? Tim, have you met Sam before? Because you're acting like you don't know each other." I was like, "Oh, all right." But I could well imagine Ange doing something very similar. But so I mean, I kind of the issue, or not the issue, where I'm at is, I've kind of accepted the reality of this season. We are very much a mid-table side, and what I mean by that is like we'll win one, lose one.
Yeah,
we are the definition. One so far. Yeah, we are the definition of mid-table, and the mad thing about that is, up until this past weekend, we were the league's top scorers, and we had the 3rd best defensive record. Work that out. And yet we were 10th.
Maths and Spurs don't. They don't.
Matt stats. We'll have to bring it back. What does Matt Stats say about that? Don't make no sense, is what he says.
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, from the point of view of being entertained every week at home, there's no question about that. Whether we've got beaten or whether we've won, there's been a couple of rubbish ones. I mean, the Arsenal one was a bit of a struggle, But in general, we've come away from the ground and we're like, wow, we've been entertained. And like I say, you're up and down all the time, standing up. And I can remember, like I say, under Conte, it was just dire. It was absolute dire, wasn't it?
Remember, there's a game me and you were talking about. I can't remember which game it was, but it was Conte, I think, not the other guy. And you basically said to me, like, me and Seb left. I was like, oh, really? You never leave? And you're like, yeah. But it was just like, one train I knew was cancelled and this was going on. Yeah. And we hadn't had a shot in 2 weeks.
God. It was dreadful.
Like, oh, man. And I remember thinking to myself, God, if Matt got up and left, like, this guy who I know has just sat through some of the biggest ever in the history of the world. And you basically sat there and went, yeah, we're not even going to have a shot today, are we? And I think
honestly,
that game finished 0-0. It was like,
yeah. I mean, it was, you'd have played another 90 minutes and we wouldn't have done a shot on goal, you know. And that's just how he set it up. I get that, you know. So it's very different under Ange. And like I said earlier, it's entertaining, and in the same way that it was entertaining. I think he's obviously a much better coach than Ozzy Ardiles is, but it has the feel of that kind of will score more than you.
Here's a question for you on this, because I think this is interesting, especially as a match-going fan compared to those sort of sat on the sofa. We were playing under Conte, this dreary, hardly ever having a shot, and we were still losing games we should have won. Like, remember him having meltdowns, like, we were 2-0 up against Southampton, lost 3-2, and he like had his rant, all this stuff. So that was still happening. Like, that's not changed. That is just Tottenham DNA for whatever reason. Would you, like, if you had a choice, like right now, and I said to you, right, Conte could come back, or we can carry on with Ange?
Oh yeah, I'd say carry on with Ange, absolutely. Yeah. But like I say, like he said he always trophy by the time he gets to his second season.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, we're still in everything.
Yeah.
So I know it's the hope that kills you.
Yeah,
I know it's the hope that kills you. But I just think, look, I'll take this inconsistency in the league. I will take it. I'm not happy with it. You know, getting beat at that Chelsea game. I mean, it was just honestly, we both come away and the two of us, and Jesus, how did that happen? Buzzing, like you said, after the first 15 minutes, absolutely buzzing. But if we can win something by luck, like hook or crook, if we can win a trophy, it will be worth it, you know. And it's another season in the bag. It's another season of growth for these younger players. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to look all doom and gloom on it, you know.
For me, like right now, if I'm Ange, and I'd like to think if I'm Lang, the head of our recruitment now, who, by the way, I'm kind of really glaring at, because the recruitment in the summer, like I said, great. These players would be brilliant in 3 to 4 years. What about now? Can we help anyone now? The January window is a bit of a nightmare window.
Of course it is, yeah.
But I remember in a January window, we brought in Bentancur and Kulusevski, and they transformed Conte ball in season 1 of Conte. And we ramped up the pitch and ended up grabbing the Champions League. Like, it was mental, the difference those two made to our side. And I've got no doubt right now we're missing Bentancur, but, you know, the guy deserved to get suspended, so that's a parked thing. Deck is in the form of his life this season, but you can't do it by yourself. But my point is that we need another January window like that. We need 2, maybe even 3 players to come in who are able to come in now and perform now and make up the numbers on the bench. Even if that means that we turn to a Bergvall or a Gray and go, right, you're going out on loan for the rest of this season, because we need a guy who's 25, 26, who's going to come in and do the business for us now, because otherwise, like, if you look at our December fixtures, like, we got Rangers away on Thursday, and then I'm fairly confident it's Southampton away, and then we play Man United, then Liverpool. And, you know, I just get that voice of Ralph from The Simpsons going, I'm in danger. But sorry, mate, I was just going to say, if you think about the history of Daniel Levy at this football club, he's 20-something seasons, he's had 14 full-time managers, which basically means he rarely gives a manager, like, time. He never really has. And when you think about in that 20-something seasons and all those different managers, Pochettino did 4 and a bit, 5, that becomes even more of a kind of, oh, wow. Like, since 2019, Ange's the first manager to start the season and end it with us. No one's gone 2 seasons. It's mad. But if you think about those fixtures, let's say we don't beat Rangers, which is infinitely possible with the injuries we got and going to Ibrox, not an easy place to go. Then Southampton away, they'll be looking at us again. No sense they're into their 4th and 5th choice centre forward, or like third and fifth choice central defenders. We got this. That's going to be a tough game, without a shadow of a doubt. If we're not at it, we're going to struggle. And they've had longer to prepare because they've had no European game. Then it's the quarter-final against Man United. Then it's Liverpool in the league. I'm telling you, those 4 games that are coming up are infinitely losable, all of them, and problems. I've been around long enough with Levy. I think he'll pull the trigger before Christmas, before the January window.
If he loses those 4 games, I can't see him surviving. I can't.
So the problem I've got with that, again, is this big problem with Levy all the time, is we start again. That means...
And that's what Romero said, didn't he?
Yeah, it's like then a new manager comes in and we start all over again. At some point, because like you said, if I'm trying to be positive, the vote of confidence that came out on Monday is the board basically saying, we know things are crap right now, but we know why. We're doing this massive squad overhaul. We're changing how we play football in this squad from top to bottom, like the football club. We believe in it. We believe it's going to work. We looked at what they did up the road. Do you know what's also very painful for me? And I think me and you have talked about this before. The architect of Arsenal's revival was Edu, who's now left them, by the way, which really made me quite happy. But he said in an interview, when he took the job and was planning what to do, he looked at what Tottenham did with Pochettino and mirrored it, except they backed him.
Yeah.
That's literally what he said. He said, every player that Arteta wanted, we went out and signed. He said, because that was the key difference. He said, I believe if Tottenham had backed their manager financially, like we are willing to do, they'd have won trophies. He said, and that was what I said to the board, and they agreed, and that's what we've done. And of course, they did pick up that FA Cup, and they've been challenging for the title. And I know they've not won it. Thank all of my gods. But they're challenging. Like, they pushed Man City all the way.
Yeah.
That was painful. When Sonny went through on goal, I've never felt more conflicted in my entire life.
That was the weirdest game I've ever been to.
So
I'm definitely I'm convinced that Sonny deliberately missed that.
Yeah.
I think he deliberately missed it because we were in the south stand and he was coming towards us, and I think he just deliberately. It must have gone through his head. If he puts that ball in the back of the net, he's handing Arsenal the title.
The South Stand are going to lynch him.
Yeah, but that would have lived with him for the rest of his. He would have basically. Sonny scored the goal, and what made me laugh. And sorry, I know you must have talked about it at the time.
Yeah.
But we've got so much criticism for you're worried about more worried about Arsenal than you are about Spurs. But if we had beaten Man City, we would have got rinsed for the next 30 years, wouldn't we?
Yeah, easily.
Like we gave Arsenal. Can you imagine? They'd be singing songs about us giving them the title.
They sing
do you know what I mean?
They won the league by being at our ground a couple of times, and we don't hear the end of it.
Exactly.
They drew 2-2 at the White Hart Lane when we were shite and they were winning the league, and that won them the title. And they sing songs about it all the time, and I get reminded about it all the time. So the thing that that was just ridiculous. But bringing it back to kind of where we are, the thing that kind of worries me is if Levy does Levy and pulls the trigger, it's 2 things that annoy me. One, it proves that appointing Scott Munn means nothing. Because Scott Munn is supposed to be in charge of the football side of the business, and Scott Munn is quite openly and actively praised the work Ange is doing and needs to be backed, and has said that. So it again would just say to me, great. So all of this talk of a new era, things being done differently, don't mean shite. We're still the same football club. And 2, it would mean we start again. And how many times have we done that? Like, Pochettino managed to build a side, and when he got to a point he said this side needs to be rebuilt, it's going to be painful, but we got to do it. They didn't back him, they fired him. Jose comes in, and they bought players for Jose, and then fired him a week before a cup final. Then Conte, the other guy comes in, and they just sign random players because everyone knew that wasn't going to last. But then Conte comes in. They signed players for Conte, for his system, the way he wants to play. Wing backs, they lined up players for him. That doesn't work out. Then Ange has to come in with a hodgepodge of Pochettino players the other guys' players, Conte's players, Jose's players, and he's gradually weeding it. You know, the amount of players we cleared out in the summer was very un-Tottenham-like.
It was really impressive, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, like releasing players, getting them gone, just doing deals to get them out of the club.
Ndombele. Getting rid of Ndombele was honestly that was like a signing. That was so I was so happy with that.
It was, because it also showed me, like, to me, it felt like, okay, that's Scott Munn, because there's no way on this earth Daniel Levy doesn't trigger the extensions in Sessegnon's and Tanganga's contracts to get a few quid for him. There's no way he doesn't do that. That is Scott Munn going, they're not on our plans, they're on the wage bill, they're going. Like, if we release them, they'll find other clubs and be gone, and it's quick and it's easy. And that to me was like, okay, that's a really great sign. That's really good that we're doing business that way. Now, again, we're going into January, and if we are going to continue to do this and be proactive of like, okay, this player has not worked out for us, off they go, in comes somebody else. Now, like, the rumour at the moment, for example, is that we are going to try and end Timo Werner's loan in January.
Right.
We've signed the lad who is in South Korea, who's coming over. He's going to be available in January for us, who plays in that same sort of position. And it feels like, look, Timo, yes, he's experienced. Yes, he's this, that, and the other, but he's just not done it. So we might as well get this other kid registered in the squad and see what he can do. I'd understand that. But again, he's 18. so again,
exactly.
Like, if you look at that and you look at the injuries we've got, You technically got Odebear, I think, 19. The young lad from South Korea is 18. You got Gray at 18, Bergval at 18. You potentially, when you look at the injuries we've got, all four of those could be starting in games right now.
An under 21 squad, isn't it?
Yeah, which is mad. Like, there are players in our under 21 squad who are older than those guys.
It
is maddening that we're kind of in this weird position. I don't know what to do. You look at the defender crisis we got as well, and I wonder if they're going to recall Phillips from his loan. But of course, we're going to get linked with anybody and everybody. The one thing that I've been told from someone who I know is well placed enough that I believe it is they are really conscious and really interested in trying to sign a left back who can also play left defence, similar to Davies. Because they feel that Udogie's level has dropped because he doesn't have any genuine competition. Yeah. And I think that's true. I think that is accurate. I think Pedro Porro's level went up when Jed Spence started well. And then for whatever reason, Jed's not getting picked. And now you can see both of them are basically, if they're fit enough to walk onto the pitch, they start.
Absolutely.
And it just it doesn't help. It's not good. I think the January window is going to be massive for us. I think we have this conversation far too much. But these next 4 games are kind of where I feel I'm going to get a good steer of where the club really are. I think if we stick to this, we get through this season and we make good, smart business decisions in the transfer market, then next season we can be a force. I genuinely believe that, based on the way Ange wants us to play, based on how the players seem to be very much invested in it, and when it clicks, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But my fear is that I've been doing this so long, Enoch, Levy, it just feels like we're just going to go through the cycle again. And before you know it, we're looking up, Googling the names of managers we're being linked to wonder, oh, good. Well, he won 6 Czech leagues, and I don't know.
Sam, here's one for you. Then. So, January transfer window.
Yeah.
Give me the player you would love us to sign in a perfect scenario. Who would you like?
It's very difficult.
A Prem player.
It's very difficult because I don't really. Like, I could say to you, like, positions in the team, but an actual player, I don't know, because right now, I mean, where do you start? Just not wanting to flip it round on you. I'm trying to wrap my brains for a player I'd like to see us bring in, but
I've got one.
Go on.
And I've said this for ages. How good would Mitoma be in Angie's system?
How good would who? Sorry,
Mitoma, the Brighton guy.
Yeah,
how good would he be in it? He's just he. See, I look at games that Ange played at Celtic, managed at Celtic, and I understand it's a different league, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they just flooded the defence, didn't they? And it was just really, and I can see how we do get glimpses of it at Spurs, not as much as we probably should do.
No,
but I feel like Matoma would fit perfectly
I
into
agree, he would. The thing again, and this is, you're talking about just. I 100% agree with you. I think he'd fit Ange Ball perfectly. I think realistically, buying any player from Brighton is a expensive hobby now. Because basically you go to them and say, hey, we're interested in them, and they go, yeah, hang on, Liverpool got first refusal. They're offering 50 million. Now Arsenal have offered 60 million. What you got? We had 20p in a Jermaine Genius bobblehead. How about you have Basuma back?
I know that for.
Yeah. How about you have Basuma back? Ignore the penalty thing. I mean, that was a mistake. Yeah.
Oh God! You know what we saw, because we're in the north
saw
now.
That coming. Everybody saw it coming.
Yeah, you really did. And you know, it's funny, because it's something I wanted to mention earlier when you were talking about Romero. I think Romero has got the what's that film? The one with Keanu Reeves where he dodges the bullets. Matrix. He has got Matrix vision.
Yeah.
Because he is, when you watch him at the games, it's insane. He's just like, not only does he knows where everything is, but he just seems to be in complete control all the time. And do you know when me and you used to talk about Dembele, how he used to be one of those players where he just brought a calmness to the team, and that is exactly what Romero does. And without him, we just start going headless chicken, don't we?
And I do think there's something that's being not talked about enough with the loss at the weekend when he went off, and also just us missing him in general. Is he does have that influence, and you'll remember this, whereas other people, younger people, won't, and older people of us similar age will definitely remember. You remember the difference in our team when Ledley King played and when he didn't? Yeah,
absolutely.
It was insane. If you saw his name on the team sheet, you instantly felt taller. You felt like, oh, we got this.
And he never used to train, did he? He used to come on and you think, like, Ledley's playing. Brilliant.
Yeah, you just knew it. And if he wasn't there, it didn't matter who you were playing, you'd have doubts. Like, we're playing a team at home, they're bottom of the league, we should thump them. Ledley's not, oh no. Yeah. And yet we could have been playing Man United in their prime at Old Trafford. Ledley started, we got a chance here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we did most of the time, didn't we?
Yeah, and it is the insane level that he brought. But that was us as fans. I think it did that to the team, and I think Romero does that to this team. I think when Romero's there, whether he speaks or whether it's just his presence, the way he plays, I think everyone on that pitch feels that bit taller, that bit bolder. Yeah. And we went at Chelsea, we went at them like we knew behind us was sorted. We knew Van der Ven and Romero were there. We can attack, we can press, we can go at them. And we were 2-0 up before they woke up. And then it fell apart. Like all of a sudden,
and it's no coincidence, is it? Yeah, no coincidence.
And also, Brennan Johnson, we found out had to go off because he was how ill he was. Like he wanted to try his best for the team, but when you now know that, you realise, he didn't track back. He was struggling the whole game, and again, that just leads to like the problems that we faced in the game. And it's mad. It's like these combinations of things. Like Mikey Moore had a virus, and now they're saying he ain't back till the new year. I mean, I really hope the kid's okay, but no one's talking about it. I've got no idea. Did he come? I mean, don't get me wrong, some virus like flu, COVID, it can hit your lungs and stuff, and imagine as an athlete, that would be a real problem, to get yourself back to fitness.
Yeah.
So, we don't know what that is, but of course, you're starting to wonder, like, oh God, I hope it's not something more serious. The kid's 17. And again,
we was buzzing about him, didn't we?
Yeah, I'll go back to that. He's 17. 18, 17,
another
19,
17,
18.
Another teenager.
It is a problem that we need to address in January, but it's whether the club, and I hate to use this word because I think everyone's going to roll their eyes, it's whether the club have the ambition to go out and spend money in January, because you do have to pay a little bit more in January to prize people away. But the thing that Levy always got wrong, And the thing is, you've got to do it early because you need to give the clubs you're buying from the opportunity to replace the players in January, especially. Like, you need to hit the ground running early to say, right, we want this player. Oh, we're only letting him go for top dollar. We'll pay it. We need him. And that's how a big club would operate. That's how Man City would operate in this window if they weren't staring down the gun of FA and Premier League sanctions. But you know, and I hate using them as the example because I hate them and I hate what they've done to the transfer market. But Chelsea, you know, we lost that game 4-3 at the weekend. Our squad came to, I think, the equivalent of 5 of their players to assemble, money-wise.
Jesus.
They spent 1.6 billion in the last 4 or 5 transfer windows. And people are going, oh, their players were so much technically better than ours. Yeah, the average fee of the players on that pitch were like 100 million. Sancho, who's there on loan, I think, cost Man United 100 million. You know, I know he's there on loan, but these players...
But he's still a £100 million player. Yeah.
These players we're talking about are all 80 to 100 to plus £1 million football players. And they are, of course, going to be very technically good. We are not signing those players. We are not going out spending that kind of money, and I don't think we ever will under this ownership. So that means we need to be smarter. We need to be buying players that, possibly aren't at that level, but can be at that level and are playing at their prime now. Because otherwise, if we don't, then that becomes we become an Ajax. We become a club that every young player looks at and goes, great, I can go there and play, and then I can move on.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Because you look at Bergvall, you look at Gray, you look at those players, they're 18, going on 19 now. They've signed 5 or 6 year deals. 3 years into those deals, we're going to be hoping to lock them down, and they're going to be thinking, okay, let's look at my options. Yeah. And
let's go to a team that win trophies.
And that's the problem. That is the problem we've got, and it's a problem that the club have created by having this for so long. I hoped with the change of hierarchy, the change of structure with Scott Munn coming in, that wouldn't be a problem anymore, or at least we would begin to move away from that. And the moves where we moved players on, to me, was like a really great sign. But the signings are very old-fashioned, Levy, young and hope. Let's hope they can do it now, but the resale is going to be good.
Can make some money on it,
and that's painful. Like as a football fan, that's not. We all want to see young players do well. All of us do. We want to see a kid come out of the academy and grab the ring by the scruff of the neck and do brilliantly. All of us do. I mean, the one big signing we made was obviously Solanke, 60 million for a striker. And I know he's not scored the goals that everyone would love to see, like 10 to 15, 20 goals without a doubt. And don't get me wrong, we've still got plenty of games left. He could easily get on a run. But anyone who's watched the game this season, and I love your perspective from watching him live, I think the guy is fantastic. And he's won me over completely.
Doesn't stop, honestly. Does not stop.
And that's
what you want to see. That's what you want to see. Like you go to the games, and ultimately, that is what you want to see, don't you? You want to see players just putting in the effort.
Yeah, when you play this system as well, when you play the way Ange wants us to play, he needs a forward to do that. But the other thing he does, which we lacked, is the ability to hold it up. He's the ability. You can hit him. You can find him with a ball over the top. Everything. He'll run all day.
Do you know what that's what I want? Yeah, completely. And that's what I wanted to ask you actually. What's been your take on Maddison? Like, because obviously he's been in and out of the squad, hasn't he?
Frustrating me.
Do you think he's a player we need?
Do you know, when we signed him, I got a message from a Leicester fan who's a Leicester and a Tottenham fan, right? He supports both clubs. Okay. He's basically through family and different things. He's like, I'm a Tottenham fan. I listen to Spurs news, but Leicester's kind of my local team. Anyway, so he said to me, I think we're going to regret this. He said, every single match-going Leicester fan say he's there 1 week, gone the next.
Yeah.
And I kind of locked that away, okay, players are different at clubs. Like sometimes you step a level and that's, you find your place, and also in different teams, different setups. He started with us in those opening 10 games of peak Ange ball brilliantly. But I would say he is consistently inconsistent which is
Spurs, isn't he?
yeah, he is the define. He if you were going to point to a player and say define Tottenham this season, it's him. But too many. He has the ability. I watched him against Manchester City grab that game. He was everywhere. He made himself available everywhere. And what that says to me is that he has the ability to do that. He did it against the very best. And that means he has the ability to grab every single game by the scruff of the neck, and he doesn't. And that bothers me more than just a player who's a bit inconsistent. Because now I look at it and go, I know what your level is, so why are you unable to reach it? Now, don't get me wrong, I know sometimes you're going to be so up for a game and your level's going to be up there. But if it's up there, you can't then be scraping the bottom the very next game. Like, if you want to be considered a good player, you need to be finding your level. And Gary Neville nailed this for me when he said it's easy to be motivated to go to the Etihad when you're a Tottenham player. It's a massive game. All week's been built up. The cameras are there, the interviews. It is easy to then play Ipswich at home. You need as a professional to get your motivation right.
Do you know what? I know this is probably me putting 2 and 2 together and making 6. Okay, yeah. But what bothers me with him is, there's a couple of presenters on the TalkSport, but I can't stand them. Darren Bent and Jason Cundy. They both played for Spurs, and they hate us, right? Because one's a Chelsea fan, and one's an Arsenal fan. They dislike us, don't they? They've worn Spurs shirts that they do not like Spurs. Yeah. And there obviously was the tweets from Maddison when he was a kid, and he didn't like Spurs, did he? He was criticising Bale. He said, "Hope we're getting smashed." And I just think that, like, when we played Chelsea at half time, they brought Sandro on because remember that screamer he scored against Chelsea. Yeah. And he loved Spurs, didn't he? He was like, a bit like the Dutch guy. He's completely escaped me. Rafael van der Vaart. Yeah. Just got Spurs, fairly in love with Spurs from the start, and Van der Vaart and Sandro as well. They both gave everything every game, didn't they? There was always putting their heart and soul. Sometimes Sandro used to go a bit overboard, but it was because he wanted to do so well. Yeah. And I worry that with Maddison, because he doesn't particularly like Spurs. Well, I know he plays, but it's just that kind of. It's your professionalism versus your feelings. Do you know what I mean? And I wonder whether that plays into it.
I think it's one of those things similar to what I was talking about earlier on with like Jed Spence and all these different things, is that when there is no logical reason you can find for why someone's form appears to be so all over the place, you do start entertaining these kind of more mad and like
nuanced ideas.
Like if you were genuinely thinking about that for a minute, like you'd think, okay, a tweet when he was 12, okay, that's probably not influencing him now. But all of a sudden, you do start going, well, if he really hates us, like he really is, like, then maybe he isn't trying as hard, But then, and he's just, but I like for me, I bring it back to, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, is for me there is a problem at the club where I think for too long everyone who signs for Tottenham knew it wasn't about trophies. Everyone who signed for Tottenham knew it was decent money, great facilities, lovely new stadium on the way, then lovely new stadium. Everything's comfortable. You've got 5-star chefs. You've got people, looking after you, massaging, the state of the art this, state of the art that. What a wonderful football club to be at. And also, there is no one from the board putting pressure on us to win stuff. Like, the manager's like, come on, let's win. And we're like, of course we want to win. But if we don't, no one's, there's no real consequence. And again, you know this when we talked about it before. I hate using this as an example because he was a Russian, money laundering git. But Roman created an atmosphere at Chelsea, which was, if you do not win, you're gone. It doesn't matter if you're the manager. It doesn't matter if I've signed you for 100 million. It doesn't matter if I've got to pay you £1 million a month compensation. If you don't do it on the pitch, you are gone. And it took them from nothing, really. Chelsea were a club that were kind of might win a trophy, might win a cup, not challenging for anything, average, their stadium falling apart, handing around a bucket at halftime, save the car parks crap, to being one of the dominant clubs in England and Europe by creating that whole thing. And he did it over like 20 years. In that time, ENIC ownership at Tottenham, they've created something as well. They've created doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how much of a winner a coach has come in, because it just keeps getting proven over and over again. Like Jose Mourinho, for me, needed to go 100%. He was driving everyone insane. The football was shite. It just wasn't working for Jose at Tottenham. But to fire that man a week before a cup final told everybody, every football fan at the club and every player at the club, what the ownership think about winning trophies. Because if there's one manager on the planet who has got wins over Pep in one-off games, it's Jose. And if there's one manager on the planet to this day, if someone said your life's on the line, you need to pick a manager to win a one-off game for you, he'd be the one I'd go to.
Oh yeah, even now, yeah.
Even now, and I don't like him. Like I would literally say, he's still the guy I would back to do that. And they fired him. And there's no...
Saved a couple of £1 million.
Yeah, basically he would have had a bonus if he lifted a trophy. And they'd have had to buy him out of his... It's kind of like one of those facts everybody knows, but no one talks about. Yeah. It's mind-blowing. But if you keep sending those signals, apathy is going to creep in. The whole club. Ange Postecoglou last season was so crazy wound up about that situation against Man City, because people inside the club were basically saying to him, "Oh, we should lose." Yeah, and he was like, it was almost
it didn't
like
make sense to him, did it?
No, like he couldn't represent. Like I think if it had just been the fans, I genuinely think he would have been like, "Oh, the fans. Yeah, of course they don't want us to win the title. I'm sure they want us to win, but it's a bit weird for them." Blah blah blah. I think he spent that week listening to people maybe higher up around him talking about it, and his mind was, "What the." What are
it didn't compute,
about?
Did it?
No.
It didn't compute. Yeah.
Like, I am here to win. What are you lot doing here? Yeah. And it just like that to me, and you could see like he lost it. And I was kind of like, I was pissed off with what he said. I was like, don't have a go at us. Like you've not been a Tottenham fan for the last 30 odd years dealing with this shit. They're like, what happened to let them feel what they want to feel, mate? Yeah. But I now reflecting on it, I think that was what it was. I think that bothered him. I think that really wound him up. And I get it. Yeah. I get that. And now we go into where we are now, which is we're giving Ange Postecoglou to say, right, we want you to play Ange ball. We want this to be amazing. We want this to be really great. And we're going to give you a bunch of teenagers. Go and win stuff. And again, it's like, what?
It's asking the impossible, isn't it? That's basically what he is.
Yeah. And so we go again, and we go again, and we go again. And now I'm just kind of in this place now where I'm like, we have to stick with him. Like every fan needs to almost accept, right, this season needs to be a bit of a write-off. What we enjoy the highs, hopefully there'll be like something amazing come of it, but kind of look at it. But the other maddening thing, and I'm sorry, I know I'm sort of rambling a lot here. You look at the league table, we're not alone in being a bit inconsistent.
Yeah, we were Man United, we were Newcastle, they're all around us, aren't they?
If we win a few games on the bounce, all of a sudden, this whole thing changes, which is mad. Like, because when we played, we played someone recently, Fulham. If we'd beaten Fulham, we were third.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think before that, again, there was another example, like we'd have been second. And you're like, it's mind blowing. Like we keep doing this to ourselves, and I know this kind of like, you win or you lose, but it's like if we can find if we can pull through this run, if we can get through it, and we can put results together, get our form back, get our confidence back, this season can suddenly look so different. But like I said to you a little while ago, which is how I'm going to finish and hand back to you, is my fear is these next 4 games is, if it doesn't go right, these next 4 games really do look bad.
So if we lose those next 4 games, are you still backing him?
Yeah, I am. And the reason being is, what do we do if we fire him? It's Ryan Mason.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Ryan Mason coming in and trying to do his best again. And I love Ryan Mason, but again, it's not... and you've got a squad of players. You know, QT Romero basically said, "You fire Ange, I'm gone."
Yeah.
And that he said that publicly, so the whole squad knows it. More importantly, the hierarchy of the club now know it, which is why I really like that he said it. But it just kind of sends this signal of, what are you doing? Where is our direction? You've brought this guy in and said, we've got our Tottenham back and this is what we're going to do. We're going to play exciting football again and we're going to be this and we're going to back, you know, it's going to take us a while. We've got to do this big squad rebuild. And then halfway through it go, yeah, well, we kind of really need to be in the European places. So we're going to fire him and we're going to try and find another new manager. We hear David Moyes is available. He won a European trophy recently, don't you know?
David Moyes. What about David Pleat? Is he still alive?
He's still there, but he fell out with the club big time. Read his book, everybody. It's an interesting book. Mate, that is it. We need to wrap things up. Me and you could talk for hours and hours and hours, I know, and people who have missed your voice will definitely be delighted to hear you back on the show. We do get a lot of messages basically saying, it's actually the funniest messages we get are, oh, I'm actually starting to get used to Stefan a little bit. Still miss Matt, which is kind of, which is kind of like, you know, a really backhanded compliment to him. Like, I'm just about used to your voice now. You don't make me want to rip my ears off anymore. Miss Matt. So
he's
people,
from the same, yeah, I was going to say he's from the same part of town almost as me, so because I'm originally from Essex, at least you get the same accent.
Yeah, it isn't just bloody Farmer Pirate Jones in the corner
there
like
you
it has been.
There you go.
Oh God, I still every now and again I still get so much dog's abuse just for how I sang this. It's just painful. Right. It hurts me. It hurts my feelings.
Just brush it off, Sam.
I will. I'll shake it off. I'll be a bit like Taylor Swift. So I'm down with the kids. Anyway, massive thank you, mate. Thank you so much for coming on and saving my bacon this week and chatting everything Tottenham. Hopefully,
really enjoyed it.
Did you find it a little bit therapeutic as well, getting it all out?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I said to you before we started recording, I think Seb's sick of me venting to him, so it's nice to vent to you and to others, you know.
Well, you have my number, so you vent anytime you want, buddy.
There you go.
Definitely. Thank you to you. Thank you to everybody for listening. Matt, do you wanna finish with a message to everybody before you go?
Happy Christmas to you all. And listen, we're going to win a trophy. We're going to win a trophy. Ange always does in his second season. So just relax. Trust the process.
Matt has said it. It will come true. Goodbye, everybody. We'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to the Spurs News Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Stay up to date with all things Tottenham. Follow us on social media. All links are in the podcast description.